On a quiet battlefield in upstate New York, there is a very strange monument. It is a stone carving of a single boot. There is no name on it. It honors the leg of the bravest general in the American Revolution, the man who, more than almost anyone alive, won America its independence. So why will no one carve his name? Because that same man would go on to commit the most infamous act of treason in American history. His name became our word for traitor. He is the reason that, even today, we say, don't be a Benedict Arnold. But here is what they leave out of the story. Before he was the villain, Benedict Arnold was the hero, the single best battlefield commander America had. There was even a moment in the smoke of his greatest victory when he should have died, and if he had died that day, there would be statues of him in every town in this country. Instead, he lived. This is the story of how the greatest hero of the revolution became its greatest traitor. Stick around because the truth is far stranger and far sadder than the legend. Go back to the very start of the war, 1775. While most of the colonies were still arguing about what to do, Arnold was already fighting. He helped capture Fort Ticonderoga, seizing the heavy cannon that would later force the British Army out of Boston. He was aggressive, he was fearless, and he won. But that was only the warm-up. That autumn, Arnold led 1,000 men on one of the most insane marches in American history, straight through the frozen wilderness of Maine in winter to attack the British stronghold of Quebec. The maps were wrong. The boats fell apart. Men starved. They ate their dogs. They boiled their own leather shoes just to have something to chew. By the time they reached Quebec, hundreds were dead or had turned back. And Arnold attacked anyway. In a blinding snowstorm on the last night of 1775, he stormed the walls of the city. The attack failed. His fellow commander was killed beside him, and Arnold was shot in the left leg. The first time, he still did not retreat. Wounded, he held his position outside the city for months. Remember that leg. It is going to matter more than you can imagine. The next year, the British came south to split the colonies in two, sailing down Lake Champlain. There was no American fleet to stop them, so Arnold built one. From scratch, out of green timber, in the middle of the wilderness. And though he lost the battle at Valcour Island, his little fleet delayed the entire British invasion by a full year. Time the new nation desperately needed. Again and again, when the cause looked hopeless, it was Arnold who saved it. But his greatest victory was still ahead of him, and it would be the very moment that destroyed him. The year is 1777. The British send General Burgoyne and a powerful army south from Canada with one goal: cut the rebellion in half. The two armies collide near Saratoga, New York. On the American side, the commanding general is Horatio Gates, a cautious political man who likes to run his battles from a chair inside his tent. His most aggressive officer is Benedict Arnold, and the two men cannot stand each other. In the first clash, Arnold's quick thinking nearly breaks the British line, but Gates holds most of the army back and refuses to send Arnold the reinforcements that might have won the day outright. Then Gates writes his report to Congress, takes all the credit for himself, and does not even mention Arnold by name. The two generals scream at each other. Gates strips Arnold of his command and tells him, in effect, that he is useless. So on October 7th, when the decisive battle erupts, Benedict Arnold has no command at all. He is ordered to sit uselessly in his tent. Instead, he hears the guns, jumps on his horse, and gallops straight into the heart of the fighting with no permission and no authority. Gates sends an officer racing after him with orders to bring him back, but Arnold simply outrides the messenger. What happens next is one of the great moments of the entire revolution. The soldiers who adore him roar with joy at the sight of their general. Arnold leads charge after charge, shattering the British line, storming their defenses, breaking the enemy army into pieces. He personally wins the Battle of Saratoga, and Saratoga is the turning point of the whole war. It is the victory that finally convinces France to enter the war on America's side. And then, in that last furious charge, a musket ball smashes into Arnold's left leg. The same leg that was wounded at Quebec. It shatters the bone. As he falls from his dying horse, the historian John Fiske wrote a single, haunting line. This, he said, was the hour when Benedict Arnold should have died. If he had, he would be remembered forever as the hero of Saratoga. But he did not die. He lived. And while he lay broken in bed, slowly recovering, the country he had just bled for was about to break his heart. Here is the part that turns a hero bitter. Gates, the general who hid in his tent, was celebrated across the country as the great conqueror of Saratoga. Arnold, who actually won it, got almost nothing, and it was not the first time. Congress had already passed him over for promotion once, advancing 5 junior officers above his head. The man who kept saving the revolution kept being humiliated by it. Crippled now, his wounded leg 2 inches shorter than the other, Arnold was made the military commander of Philadelphia. There he fell in love with Peggy Shippen, a young woman from a prominent Loyalist family, and he married her. He lived far beyond his means. He fell deep into debt, and he made a powerful enemy, Joseph Reed, the head of Pennsylvania's government. Reed hit him with a long list of charges, and when a committee of Congress cleared Arnold of nearly all of them, Reed still would not stop. He had the accusations printed and mailed to the governor of every single state, a deliberate campaign to poison the entire country against him. Furious, Arnold demanded a court-martial to clear his name once and for all. It dragged on for more than a year. In the end, the court cleared him of any dishonesty, but it ordered one small formal reprimand over 2 trivial matters, and that reprimand had to be delivered by the one man Arnold still revered, George Washington. For the hero of Saratoga, publicly scolded over almost nothing, it was the final insult. Quietly, in disguised handwriting, he had already begun writing secret letters to the enemy. And soon he would ask Washington for one specific command, a command that held the key to the entire war. That command was West Point, a fortress perched on a sharp bend of the Hudson River in New York, and whoever controlled the Hudson could cut the American colonies cleanly in 2. To stop British ships, the Americans had even stretched a gigantic iron chain all the way across the river. West Point was quite literally the lock on the front door of the Revolution. And in the summer of 1780, Benedict Arnold talked George Washington into handing him the key. His plan was breathtaking in its betrayal. He would surrender West Point and its 3,000 defenders to the British in exchange for money and a general's rank in their army. The secret go-between was a charming young British officer named Major John Andre, the favorite of the British commander, Sir Henry Clinton. For months, Arnold and Andre traded coded letters under false names, but now, to finalize the plot, the 2 of them had to meet in person. On a black night in September, Andre sailed up the Hudson aboard a British warship called the Vulture. A small boat rowed him to shore, and there, in a thicket of fir trees, under cover of midnight, the 2 men worked out the details of the surrender. But they talked too long. Gray dawn came before they had finished, and the nervous boatman now refused to row Andre back to his ship. Suddenly, he was trapped, deep behind American lines. Then came the accident that changed everything. An American cannon, annoyed at the sight of a British ship sitting in the river, opened fire on the Vulture and drove it downstream, out of reach. Andre was stranded. He had no choice but to try to slip south by land in civilian disguise. And Arnold sent him off carrying 6 secret documents. The plans to West Point, in Arnold's own handwriting, hidden inside his stockings, pressed against the soles of his feet. Everything now depended on one man, riding quietly through the countryside, and on 3 strangers, waiting in the road. The next morning, near a creek by Tarrytown, just beside the haunted woods of Sleepy Hollow, Andre was stopped by 3 young militiamen. One of them happened to be wearing a captured Hessian coat. Confused and thinking these men were friends, Andre admitted that he was a British officer. It was a fatal mistake. They pulled him down and searched him, and there, between his stocking and the sole of his foot, they found the papers. One of the men looked them over and said, "By God, he is a spy." What happened next is almost too strange to believe. The papers were passed up the chain of command to a Colonel Jameson, and Jameson, simply unable to imagine that the great Benedict Arnold could ever be a traitor, decided to send the captured spy along with a warning letter straight to Arnold himself. Another officer talked him out of sending the prisoner, but incredibly, Jameson let the warning letter continue on its way, directly to Arnold. And here is the next twist of fate. The captured documents themselves were rushed off to George Washington, but Washington, by sheer chance, had taken a different road home than everyone expected. The courier missed him entirely. So for a few critical hours, the only man in America who knew the plot had been discovered was the traitor himself. On the morning the letter arrived, Arnold was sitting at breakfast waiting for Washington to come visit. A courier handed him Jameson's note. Arnold read that Andre had been captured with the papers, and he did not flinch. He calmly finished the sentence he was speaking, excused himself from the table, went upstairs, kissed his sleeping baby goodbye, told his hysterical wife that he was a ruined man, and bolted down to his barge. He ordered the oarsmen to row him downriver 8 miles to the Vulture, the very ship that had carried Andre, and just like that, Benedict Arnold was gone. Hours later, Washington arrived, and the evidence was laid out before him. The greatest soldier of the Revolution, the man he had trusted and defended and admired, had tried to sell the entire war to the enemy. Washington, his voice breaking and tears on his face, could only say, "Arnold is a traitor and has fled to the British. Whom can we trust now?" There was still one person left to pay. Major Andre, charming, brave, and only 30 years old, was put on trial as a spy. The officer guarding him had once been a college classmate of Nathan Hale, the young American the British had hanged as a spy years before. The symmetry was unbearably cruel. Andre was sentenced to death and hanged. Even the American soldiers wept for him and wished out loud that the traitor who had lured him to his death could hang in his place instead. And Arnold? For betraying his country and dooming Andre, the British paid him about £6,000 and made him a general in their own army. He then led British troops in burning American towns. Once, during a raid, he asked a captured American officer what he thought the Americans would do if they ever caught Arnold himself. The officer's reply was unforgettable. They would cut off the leg that was wounded at Quebec and Saratoga, he said, and bury it with full military honors, and the rest of you they would hang on a gibbet. That officer understood the whole tragedy perfectly. There were 2 Benedict Arnolds. The leg belonged to the hero, the man who marched on Quebec, built a fleet from nothing, and won the day at Saratoga. That leg deserved a monument. The rest of him belonged to the traitor. He died years later in London, a man without a country, despised by the side he had abandoned and never quite trusted by the side he had joined. And back at Saratoga, on the field of his greatest glory, that strange boot monument still stands today. It honors his leg and his courage, while refusing forever to speak his name. So here is my question for you. Was Benedict Arnold a born villain, or a hero the Revolution pushed one insult too far? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more of the history they never put in the textbooks, subscribe. The next story might surprise you even more.